The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not, and where you can subscribe to my Twitter feed, twitter.com/GaryBaumgarten. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you to the show. Hey, it's 200 days into the Obama administration. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, do I have comments off the blog to share with you. And I want to hear from everybody in this room about the job you think that the president is doing. Is Alan in the room, by the way, Boaz?
I believe he is, Gary.
Okay, well, I'm going to call on you. Yeah. There he is. I'm going to call on you and Alan because you have differing perspectives. You're a bit to the right and he's a bit to the left. And your visions of the job that the president has been doing may be a little bit different. So I think that'd be a great way to start it off and then open it up to the callers. Before I do that, I have breaking news from Iran. I've told you, ladies and gentlemen, that I will not let this story go. And this is one that I haven't seen very many places. To their credit, the Jerusalem Post has been reporting quite fervently about what's happening in Iran. I think they have pretty much the same stance towards the situation there as do I, and probably because, of course, Iran poses the current regime clear and present danger to the people of Israel. 7 lawyers in Tabriz and Mashhad who have been representing young Iranians detained in post-presidential election protests have been killed by the Iranian authorities in recent days, according to sources in Iran. This from the Jerusalem Post. Their deaths have deterred other lawyers from taking detainees' cases, they added. The sources spoke to the Jerusalem Post by telephone and requested that their identities remain undisclosed for their own security. In Tabriz, Iran's 4th largest city, the bodies of 5 lawyers were returned to their families earlier this week. The sources said the 5 had been representing some of the hundreds of Iranians detained in the northwestern city during the post-election protests. They were then themselves accused of disrupting security and encouraging unethical actions against the regime and were sentenced to 3 years each in jail. 3 of them have died from injuries suffered during their detention. They were so badly beaten that their families could barely recognize their faces. The other 2 prominent figures in the local community were executed, having been sentenced to death on trumped-up charges of drug possession, the sources said. I think the story speaks for itself. Does it not? President Obama, 200 days in office. This is one area where I'm frustrated with the president, not having put the clamp down on the Iranian regime while we watched in horror all these atrocities unfold when the election ended. Why this president didn't impose greater sanctions and the rest of the world didn't impose greater sanctions right now on the regime is beyond me. I'm not calling for an invasion of Iran, Sylvia. Get your hand up if you disagree with me. Get your hand up if you agree with me. Get your hand up, assigned mod. I want to hear what you have to say, too. Thank you. Now we're getting going. Who shall I start with on the president? Shall we go to the left first or shall we go to the right? Let's go to the right first. The gentleman from California, Boaz Frankel. How do you assess President Obama's first 200 days?
You know, Gary, I was sure you were going to go to the left first because we do write from left to right, but I
Well,
think
here
you
in
have
the United States we do, but you Israelis write from right to left.
right. Oh, yeah, I figured you're gonna throw that back, but that's okay. I don't mind going first. That's fine. Well, you bring up I'm going to bring up 2 points. One is international, the other, of course, is domestic. Um, Internationally, I think Obama's not doing a very good job. You mentioned the issue with Iran. I think that the president has miscalculated and mishandled the entire situation with Iran in not imposing stronger sanctions on Iran on 2 points. One, because of the human rights, the horrendous human rights violations going on in Iran right now as a result of the elections. And of course, you just mentioned the 7 lawyers that were beaten beyond recognition and killed by the Iranian government, which clearly shows that there is no law in Iran. There is dictatorship. And of course, the Iranian nuclear program, which nobody really knows when they may have a nuclear weapon. I even heard a report today, Gary, that from the United States Pentagon that they may not have a nuclear weapon for the next 2 or 3 years. And only a few months ago, or rather maybe even a month ago, we heard a different report that by year end they will have a nuclear weapon. So
Days
clearly,
ago, both the German intelligence and Israeli military intelligence say by year's end they will have the capability of producing a nuclear
that's
weapon.
right.
Right.
So I think Obama has mishandled that. I want to touch upon North Korea also. These 2 reporters that were released by North Korea as a result of the backdoor the political operations between the 2 countries, and the Bill Clinton flying to North Korea to secure their release. Well, there's a double-edged sword. I'm glad they got them released. I mean, they were sentenced to 12 years hard labor in some camp for spying or whatever. I think there was a good thing to do that. But on the other hand, I'm hoping that these backdoor negotiations, which I am estimating either cost us